All right, before we get started, how many people actually run Bro? Anybody? Anybody know what Bro is? Wow, so fairly new group. That's fine. That's great because we're going to cover a lot of stuff. I try not to speak too fast, but I'm trying to shove as much down your throat as I can in the next 45 minutes. We're going to do a little bit of coding, at least look from the command line at some of the Bro stuff. So it goes quick, but just holler out if you have any questions, stuff like that. Probably won't be taking questions at the end. If you want to talk to me, I'll let you look at that. So you can find me on Twitter, IRC is usually easiest, or you can send me an email. So my name is Zac Hinkel. This is my third HouSecCon, spoken at ShmooCon, and about all kinds of things. And to start off with, mainly my first job was an airline pilot, which currently still am an airline pilot, but that's actually changing. Network security consultant. I started off with computers whenever it was IRC and patching into phone panels in the back of fields behind my house. And kind of stuck with that. Flying is what I do for my main career. And then I did a bunch of red teaming theft stuff where I would go and do physical stuff and like to break into places. And then insurance kept going up and up and up, and I was kind of doing it on the side, so I didn't really have any I couldn't justify doing it anymore for the contracts I was getting. So then we kind of came in with drone development. Loved RC planes when I was a kid. And so we kind of took these RC planes mixed with red teaming. And we did all kinds of great things. I had a DARPA team that we had for doing DARPA projects. I've done government projects. I've done all kinds of stuff in that. And now I've actually kind of dumped it all to the hell away, and I'm doing blue teaming now. So much that I'm going to be talking to you about Bro. I'll talk today and it'll seem like I'm talking about some magical product that doesn't exist, but for me it is magic. The way it does things, the way it handles things is the way I would want something to work for me, because I'm lazy and I want something easy, and I want to be able to see things at the level from that 50,000 foot view all the way down, so I can drill down all the way down to a particular connection, if you will. So that's kind of the big thing. I'm actually leaving the airlines. I'm leaving the red teaming, and I've actually joined with a company called Bro, which is basically made up of the core developers of Bro. And it's basically to help take Bro from what was typically a university application, large data center usage, especially on supercomputing, government installations, stuff like that, and bring it more into an enterprise usage environment. And so what Bro does is try to bring that to the enterprise, and just like it shows there, build the community, strategic consulting, and Bro support for any enterprise that wants that. So Bro is definitely going to say the whole Bro platform will be staying open source. We're just helping adopt it to enterprise usage. So what is Bro? You probably may have heard it before, may not until this presentation. First off, we'll take a look at the traditional tool set of trying to look at traffic coming into your network. And so you originally, have TCP'd up, Wireshark, Argus, Snort, and you're trying to paste all this stuff together with either Perl or Python to get them to talk together, to get information from one side to the other, and to pull information out that you want to see. So the whole idea was to take a product, if you will, or an open source project, started by Vern Paxson back in '95. So Bro's been around since '95 when it was first made in Berkeley, and take all that and kind of cram it into one programming language so that we can manipulate data, pull data out as easily as possible. So Bro is three things, and it does three things. So starting with what it is, you have the Bro platform, which is the underlying utilities to manage the Bro API, the interfaces, pretty much all the nit and gritty stuff that you don't want to have to deal with. It's working in the background to take things from the wire and bring it into what we call the Bro programming language. Bro programming language is Turing complete. It's very Python-esque. So if you can use Python, you'll be able to sit down, see Bro programming language, and start using it right away. And with that Bro programming language, we make Bro applications. Bro IDS is probably what most people think about whenever they hear Bro, because that is the main right now, one of the main things that Bro is used for. These are other things that you can do with the Bro applications, things that are already developed and in the Bro platform. So the idea is vulnerability management. You can actually not even look at things on the wire, but you can do full file analysis with things that are actually already on your computer. So if you wanted to actually take and say hash every file that's on your computer, you can do that with the Bro file analysis. You can do that at line speed also at the same time with anything coming through the network tap to Bro. Now when we're talking about Bro, and I'm talking about the whole thing, we're not talking about you going out and spending $15,000 on some powerhouse computer that sits there and monitors 1 gig of data traffic. Bro, the way you see it most of the time is you can actually put it behind the router, and I'll get to that in just a minute, but you can take a Dell R720, which I think is about $4,000 right now, and we can monitor up to almost 10 gigabit per second just using that Dell computer. So it doesn't have to be some magical box that you're paying a lot of money for. We're talking about Bro being an open source, community developed package that you download for free, put on a server, and just shove it right behind your firewall and watch the traffic go in and out. And so this is normally the use case, right? So we have maybe our DMZ, our local network traffic as far as servers are concerned, talking to all of our peripherals that are on our network, whether they're anything speaking TCP IP. So you got obviously your desktops, even your tablets. You got people running smartphones on your network. Everything that is speaking across network, including your phone system, we can read all of that just fine. So what we do is before that goes to the internet, we usually, at least for the very first Bro that you might want to put on your network, you put it just so you have a network tap that just pulls that traffic as it hits the router. So what you want to do is pull the inside, so you're getting all your private IP addresses, so you can map stuff back whenever you're looking at malware or whenever you're investigating something, and then just take it and put it through a network tap right before it leaves the network. I guess I said that like 3 times, didn't I? So Bro is 3 things, and it does 3 things. So the very first thing that we do is protocol logs. So it's sits there, like I said, watches every connection going back and forth. It's also sitting off a passive connection, but Bro understands how a protocol should work. It understands the send, acknowledge, acknowledge. It knows that it's a full state analyzer, so it can see if connections drop halfway through. If somebody's trying to brute force by sending connections, stuff like that, it'll show up in Bro as big red flags. So you can even do things like, when we'll get to a little bit later in the actions, where if you have a particular computer that you see starts sending out nmap scan, if you wanted to with Bro actions, you could actually just tell the switch to kill that switch port and kill it as soon as Bro sees it. We'll say the protocol logs are very Unixy, kind of nasty messes. We're going to look at those in just a few minutes. If you like sitting at the command line and just parsing data, you're going to love it, because that's all it is. And this data is made so that, you get alerts out of Bro, but you're going to feed these to something that may be like an ELSA, some kind of Elasticsearch, or, maybe to Splunk if you're running Splunk at your organization. You could feed it all back to there, take notices and alerts for certain things. So when you see certain things, then you automatically get notified of them. So alerts, like you said, comes pre-configured with a variety of signature anomaly detection. So your bad SSLs, your SSH failed logins, Windows reverse shells, things like that, it picks it up instantly. It's all built into Bro. You can feed as much information and intel into Bro as you can possibly imagine. We're going to look at a couple of those. We have people that use this and actually feed in. Of course, they have access to it, but like the full NSA database of bad things, which is like 100,000 things. We can use that in Bro, and Bro can do it at line speed and sit there and send up notifications and flags at full speed and let people know when something enters the network. So alerts, as far as the command line, is going to be one of the main things we're going to look at today. But then we got actions. So think about your organization right now and the data that's coming through and how the data is coming through. And I bet hardly anybody, if anybody in here, can say, every time there is an application that gets transferred through my firewall, so anytime an application comes in, whether it's an EXE that's labeled a PDF or maybe an EXE labeled an ASP, it doesn't matter, because we're not looking at what your browser is saying that the MIME type is. Bro's actually got an analyzer that's going to sit there and look at the MIME type and figure out the MIME type itself. So then we can drop those. And then, like I say, who can tell me that every executable, so DOS executable MIME type that comes in is kept somewhere where they can look at it, or at least analyzed on the across their network. And those are the kind of things that we can do with Bro. So we can say anytime that an executable comes in, let's just save it over here. So let's take a look at it later. Or else we can send it straight to a Cuckoo Box cluster where we can take it apart. Or we can take it and send it to VirusTotal. We could send it to Team Cumry up there at the top. Those things are things that you'd want to do with any kind of file that's coming in. And you'll see today, we'll do a couple examples as long as my phone holds our internet okay, where we'll pull some malware PCAPs, and you'll see Bro automatically reach out to the Team Cumry database and tell me, hey, Team Cumry says that this isn't good. At least 30 or 40% of all the virus definitions out there hit on this. So these are just all kinds of actions, and these are completely configurable actions. You can make these, anybody that can do Perl can do these in probably 5 or 10 minutes, and I'll show you a few in a minute, where you can define your own actions so that whenever you see something that you want to hit upon later or you want to take further analysis of, then it's going to set it aside so you can look at it. And so let's take a look at a couple examples I have up here. I just did 3 quick, sorry, I'm losing my voice. I'm grabbing some more. So I did 3 quick malware samples that are pretty common ones that you'd see on your network. And we're going to kind of take them apart with Bro. And look, our session is still up. We are still pinging. Would you believe that? So, so here's some malware examples. So let's just go into, whoops. The first one, this T-bot, and we will run this through Bro. So all I'm doing is these are just standard PCAPs that I have in there. You can pull the PCAP from anything you have currently in production, even if you just wanted to run it through Bro to analyze it. So let's just take a look at the largest one, which that makes it impossible to do, doesn't it? Okay, let's do this. So we're going to read, that's what the /r is, read this into Bro, grab this PCAP, grab this bottom one, and then I'm going to append local here. And the reason is because I have a couple extra rules in here that I use for mostly forensics that's going to go ahead and show me all the files that it transfers on this. And so, give it a second. Hopefully it won't die. There we go. So right now, I get this first warning saying no site local nets have been defined. Bro pretty much runs straight off the I guess the box or then packaging. It does have you set some local nets, if you will, just to kind of help clarify what your local networks are. If you have Wi-Fi networks, Bro can actually detect rogue access points. So you can put in your Wi-Fi networks and instantly get alerted to rogue access points. So this is what we get right here. You can see it was just a bunch of log files. And if we cat this out, we get beautiful things like that, which does us hardly any good, right? So it's kind of a mess to look at, but we can do a couple of things to... I'll even show you here. At the very top, on the screen, of course, it's a little bit smaller, so it makes it a little bit harder. Hang on. But right there across the top, you actually got the headers for every field. Obviously, your screen's usually a little bit wider, so it's going to look a lot better. But you can see things like the time that it happens. Bro's going to give it a UID for every event that comes through there. The ID of the originating host, the originating port, the responding host and port, protocols, and it goes across service, things like that. So if we take a look at this, we can see in here things like the SSL log. So if we catted out the SSL log, we'd see a whole lot of stuff in there. And if you notice something right there, as soon as I see that SSL log, I notice that we have got, let me see if I can even take this apart for you guys real quick, since it looks so bad. Yeah, of course, it's going to make it so it's hard to see on here. Okay, so we got this stuff across the top, and we want to look at some stuff. So we're going to go ahead and cat that log out, and then Bro comes with a great utility called BroCut. Nice thing about BroCut, I just give it what I want to see. So something that stands out is, obviously this has a domain generation algorithm running, so it's probably a botnet. And the reason I can see that is because of these server addresses. As soon as server name, sorry. And then let's look at the subject off the SSL certificates. So here we go. So I can take a look right now and see that all of these servers that this person on our network is reaching out to are on the left. I don't know about you guys, but I don't have very many of these saved as my defaults or my browser history of things that I go to very lately, or very often. So these are things, obviously, that would stand out from you. So you could pretty much look at this and be like, okay, well, that's something I should investigate. But you can see this person was pretty lazy too, and the servers that they're connecting to are actually connecting an SSL, but the SSL certificate doesn't match the server they're going to. So that's the very first thing. And that's one of the things we're looking at right here. The Bro is detecting that the certs don't match. And that's why we have that huge SSL log. And if we even looked at the easiest ways, the notice log. So notice log is pretty much going to be anything that you want to see for sure. And that's the exact same thing we just looked at. Invalid server certificates are showing up all over the place for validation failed, unable to get the certificate because it doesn't match up or the server's not there anymore. Some other things, I mean, if you think about, I don't know how any of you guys use the Microsoft Azure service. So they have their cloud-based EC2 type of thing that Microsoft runs, which died twice now, I think twice in the last year, 2 years now, all for invalid server certifications. And so it's all from SSL certs going expired. They basically didn't catch the fact that some of the SSL certs were expiring. So it's Bro, I can actually tell it, if I have a Bro, if I have an SSL, excuse me, if I have an SSL certificate that's going to expire in the next 30 days, I want you to write that out to the notice log. So then you could choose where the notice log goes, how you're alerted. And those things, you know, that's for you to customize. But it's the fact that Bro is going to automatically look at every single SSL connection that comes through there and say, hey, should these people be connecting to self-signed certificates? Should these people be connecting to certificates that expired a year ago? We could even go as far and say, these certificates were issued by this certificate authority that we have a known compromise to. So remember when those guys were getting, like DigiNotem and stuff like that, were getting hacked, and their certificates were being fraudulently generated, you could just do something simple in Bro and say, every time something comes from a known certificate authority that I just got hacked, I want to see that certificate. And Bro's just going to spit out all the certificates that come there through there for you. So let's see here. Let's go check out another one. This is going to be pretty much off the headers coming through. So it is going to look into that SSL, but we're not going to break the SSL connection. So we're only looking at the certificate itself during the X509 handshake. So here's this one. Let's see. I can't remember which one of these. Sorry. I have a lot of malware, so I can never remember which one has what I need on it. So, or what I want to show you guys. Same thing. Read this in. Locals. Same thing about the network. And then I can tell that this one. So let's see here. 80. And we're looking through these, and we can look at some of these things like, here's all the files that got transferred through here. Most of these you'll notice are HTML. But then, of course, I don't know if you can see it right there, you got a context.exe. So one of the things I wanted to show you guys, if we can get our internet to work well. You can see it's a little iffy. Well, this is not going to do it, unfortunately, today. So what this would do normally was we'd have a notice log here. And so that notice log on this one is going to give me some errors for those files. And what we're doing is these files, if we just look at these files right quick, is these long hashes that you see are actually MD5 and SHA-1 hashes. So we're running these hashes in there for every single file, at least of mine. And you can see that it's got it over here on the left-hand side, where since it's got an MD5 and a SHA-1 for every kind of application that comes through here. And we can see this was actually DOS executable. But there's really no way, if you were looking at it, I mean, that might be fishy to see something called contacts.exe, but you don't really know if it is a virus or what the chances of it are. So what Bro does, and this is by default in the new 2.2, which is still in beta, but it's downloadable off the website, is it reaches out, and well, first off, it hashes that with the MD5, and then it reaches out to that Team Comrie database that I was talking about. And so what they do is they use VirusTotal, and they have a whole database of known malware. And what they do is they actually have a DNS that says this MD5.teamcomrie.com, and whenever bro reaches out, all it does is does a simple DNS lookup on that hash. When that hash is returned, or the DNS lookup is returned, it gives a probability and the known statistics about it. So we get things like, this shows as known malware. The malware shows up at least in 40% of the analyzers on VirusTotal. And this is what we know about it. You can go to this URL, and at this URL, you can analyze it further. So that way, whenever the notice log is written, if however you're getting logged in, or however you're getting notified of things in the notice log, you instantly get notification of something coming through the network, hitting the Team Comrie database, and you getting a malware coming into the network. And then you could even do things like kill switch access for that computer, grab that executable, keep it so that we always have a copy of it to see where it's going, or throw it to our cuckoo box cluster so that we can look at it later. So things like that make life a lot easier. And we can look at signatures too, and that's why I have this last one for us. So if we go into this one, I'll read this in, and local. And on this one, let's kind of work it a little bit backwards. So if we're working this one backwards to show, we see the notice log. Let's take a look at it. And so we got a reverse shell. And so you can see right here, and we had a signature that said sensitive signature, attacks response. It's a reverse shell back. It even tells us it came from bbs.info. I'm sorry, bbs/info.asp. So if we want to look at it a little bit more, we can see that that's there. This is the actual signature that hit right here. We can take a look at it. Looks like it's JavaScript running through that info.asp. You can see the control for it. So you can see how it's keeping the connection alive and everything. And if we wanted to figure out who that was, we could actually take it and look at it and say, let's look at the connection log. And we get something like that. And let's say, let's cut and look at protocol, service, and port. Let's do this. And you still kind of come up with some nastiness that looks like that. So then we can actually sort it. We can actually only say we want to look at unique ones and maybe the count. So then you can see something else that's kind of odd, right? What's odd about that connection right there, the second one? Yeah, this isn't HTTPS because we'd have the HTTPS because we'd see that. This is HTTP running on 443. So instantly I would be like, that would clue me into something's not right. I could go ahead and pull up the host that this was coming from. And this one right here is an octet stream from that JavaScript that's running that reverse shell. And of course DNS, which is no big deal in that. So it allows you to actually take a look at and see what's coming through your network, break it down so that you know how to kind of dive in a little bit deeper and look at the package to figure out what's going on. So I was laughing because I'll even show you the piece of this because they brought up APT1 earlier. So I don't know if anybody's actually ever looked at the Mandiant APT1 report. So it was their big report, and actually had some pretty funny videos of people logging in and setting up some command and control botnets that they actually had a remote view of their desktop while they were setting it up, which is pretty entertaining to see. So they sent out this big report, and the report had a lot of great information as far as domains that they know are bad, SSL certificates that they know are bad, and file hashes that are known bad. But you get this, and you get this huge digital report, and you're like, well, what do I do with this? So one of our developers, Seth, that is on the Bro core team, basically made it all into, made it so that you can bring it into Bro and take a look at it. And the best part is it's 3 easy things to do. You just go to your Bro directory, then you clone the APT Bro rules that he has, and then you load that into your local Bro file. Your local Bro file is kind of like your personal configuration file, where you can load individual modules that you might download off the internet, modules you might create, and tell it to run on your on your Bro deployment. So we can even take a look at this just so you guys can see how simple coding in Bro is. Probably look a little bit worse on here. So here's the let's see, APT1. And this is the main Bro. So we got the data, and the data is basically just the listed data from that ATP report. So known bad websites and all that kind of stuff. And we're just going to feed this into our Bro script using our Bro code, which is, let's do less. So this is it, pretty simple. So the first thing is we're going to load the notice framework that allows me to send notices to myself and to print notices on the screen. We kind of classify everything that we're going to bring in, the APT1 domain hit, certificate hit, and the file MD5 hit. And then you can see down here, pretty simple, and every time we see a 509 certificate and there's a connection, we're going to take a look at it and we're going to compare it to the ones in the APT 509 serials and subjects line. If that hits, then we're going to write out to the notice log that there was a possible certificate from an APT1 report seen. Same thing with DNS requests. So, I mean, that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines. One for DNS, one for X509s, and one for hashes. So Bro's automatically doing the hashing for you. It's just comparing this off that file. And the best part about this is not only can I do this with all the traffic that's coming in, with Bro I can reach back into the past and look at all the traffic that I already still have on my Bro box. So I can look back and say, well, maybe we're not seeing something now, but how do we know computer wasn't exploited a week, 2 weeks, 3 months ago? And this just allows you to kind of run this and go back and see if you did have an issue that occurred that maybe you haven't even found yet. Okay, so that's pretty much looking at Bro as far as traffic at the actual blurb with the Bro IDS. Now we're going to kind of look at a little bit of the ICS SCADA embedded systems. And the first thing we take a look at is the case study. Everybody here this morning, or most people here this morning, heard HD talk about what they called Internet Census of 2012. It started in May of last year, so May 2012, into May. I believe the 30th was when the deployment occurred. It was picked up by Ashish, which is, that's pretty graphic. So he showed the US section. This is actually the world. You can see China was actually one of the hardest that was getting hit by the devices. And so here's Ashish, big Bro users, actually over in Berkeley at the LBL Labs, where they have a huge Bro cluster of, I think it's almost like 9 or 10 racks full of machines just doing Bro. And so he actually found this in June, so I believe it was about a week or 2 weeks after the deployment occurred. Obviously, we got permission to talk about it, I believe, about 2.5 weeks ago. So this was a huge deal because what Ashish saw and going through the Bro clusters was a bunch of webcams that were getting just owned left and right. And whenever we started tracking it back, it goes all the way back to one particular manufacturer in China that these were all coming from. The problem was they were an OEM for about 100 companies that sells these. So these are just cameras that you see at Walmart, Sam's Club, Amazon.com, things that people order for their businesses. And so what it was is it had an exploit, I won't even really call it, I mean, it is basically turning on a service. There were some other issues where if you went and changed your password on your web interface thinking that you were being very safe, it wasn't changing the root password on the busy box that was running underneath. So the embedded Linux system underneath had the default password that never got updated. Even whenever you change the password on the actual web interface. And a lot of people were just plugging these in, forward-facing the internet, and they were monitoring all kinds of things. You could see private offices, buildings, lobbies, security cameras from different places, and people had them at home plugged into the internet. And so what was happening is this would be like pretty much your standard HTTP traffic going through. So this is a standard output of what you should be seeing off the camera. And what people were doing is going in there and dumping a payload in via a very crafted HTTP code to turn on an FTP server, which allowed them to put different things in there as far as BusyBox and upgrading it a little bit, adding tools to it, traceroute, Nmap, all kinds of things got actually put in there a little bit, been part of this mapping the internet. So you can see, even if you were just taking something simple, like taking your network traffic and graphing it out with Bro, if you had something that looked like that, that suddenly changed to that, you should be slightly concerned. Well, not only does Bro sit there and let you look at all the packets coming in, but it's also passively watching traffic going out. And it can tell you things about that traffic as far as what services are running, versions of those services that are running, so that you can kind of get the full picture of what's going on in your network. So here is another one where you can see the connection log, and we're just looking at services running on that device, where it went from 14 HTTP packets, and then all of a sudden you see a new service came in, FTP, and then we got these 2 FTP data being sent from the camera. Same thing, this is known services. So if you have Bro sitting there passively watching your network, it constantly prints out all known services and allows you to compare that so that you can say, you know, today I got HTTP, tomorrow I got FTP server, especially if you're sitting in your network at your office and you can watch services start up that shouldn't be starting up. It allows you to quickly know that something's not right on your network. And so here's the commands of what they were doing. So even if you wanted to dive down really deep, you could see the normal commands that should be coming out of that camera unit and the commands that allowed you to go in and change the configuration, configure an FTP server, and then redo that main CGI allowed basically a back-end service that was running on all those embedded devices. So one thing he didn't talk much about is how far-reaching this was. I suggest anybody to read, just Google that Internet Census 2012 about it, because the guys, the gentleman running it, I should say, planned on hitting, I believe it was like 1,000 to 1,500 units. They ended up deploying on 420,000 units worldwide, which was insane. So basically, it was all these particular, pretty much cameras from this one OEM that they modified, or they built their own code for it, compiled it, and then just let it kind of unleash itself where it went ahead and spread. Neat thing about it is it allowed them to give us a lot of data back. If you know who it is, make sure you don't say anything, because I can tell you a lot of resources went in to find this person. It was a big deal for a while. Government got really involved. Supercomputer lab time was devoted to this, just trying to figure out what was going on, because it was just low and slow. These cameras were only scanning like 10 IP addresses over the course of all day time sometimes. So very low, very slow. 1 or 2 packets here, you didn't get much back and forth. Which made it extremely hard for them to track down and try to find the command and control structure of it. Reading the article afterwards that the guys put out is hilarious, because he even put in a README on these devices, and he was very safe. Every process he put on there was very low priority, so it wouldn't interfere with the camera. A README was there saying that, hey, your device is using default passwords. We're not doing anything bad. We're just trying to scan the entire internet. And it'll be returned, you know, services won't be affected. And so the report he put out, I believe, like HD says, like 9 terabytes of data that all came out from that report. And it's great to look at. It's great for us to look at and look at all the information.
Well, they also patched one of the vulnerabilities that come from a compromise.
Right.
Actually patched it for the bad guys.
Yeah, and so that was one of the funny things too. So he sends out this deployment, and whenever they get to some of the cameras, they realize that there's already a payload package there. So somebody's already made malware based off of what they're looking at also. And so since they didn't want the malware to mess with what they were doing, they actually changed firewall rules and updated the patches and changed passwords so that that malware would stop spreading so that they could continue with their scan. So yeah, it is a pretty interesting thing. But it also shows 2 things. What's running on your embedded devices at your enterprise level. People don't think about it anymore. They get brand new TVs and they plug them in, the smart TVs. And I run Bro at home, and it always catches me off guard when I start seeing data from my network tunnel out to Taiwan and China and Korea and stuff like that. And I got to the point where it was my damn TV. I had a Samsung 60-inch TV that was going everywhere. And so I was like, well, I'll kill that. I'll just deny DNS service to it. It would tunnel around it. It would set up its own DNS servers and find them. Over Samsung would like have their own in different places, so it would keep you from blocking it. And that also gave us great ideas. I worked on several projects where we red team, and that's exactly what we did. Capture all the data coming through, And then that was the simplest thing. We found packages of updates coming to these TVs, coming to devices inside the networks. Projectors. A lot of projectors now have Wi-Fi built in so that I can actually use my laptop, connect a projector with Wi-Fi, and no cords are involved. Well, a lot of people are plugging those projectors into the network because it does great things, like tells you when the bulb's going to run out, how long you have until that bulb's running out, and interacting with automation systems at corporations. But the problem is you can pivot through those a lot of times, and that's what we were doing. Well, with the TV, the first thing I did is I saw that firmware package come down, and I said, well, I got a firmware package now, can I take it apart? Ran it through an unzip process, and sure enough, I pulled out the entire firmware update, modified it, sent it back to my TV. When I sent it back to my TV, there was no verification of like any kind of like SHA-5 or MD5 or anything to checking the authenticity of that update. It just ran it. So, of course, me being me, I had to put BusyBox on it. So I had BusyBox running on my TV, and so I could actually tell it in or SSH into my TV. And I had a little interpreter that I ended up building, and so I could pivot through my TV and do scanning of the house and stuff, just to demonstrate how easy it is. This isn't some great mastermind. I am crappy with code. I am horrible. I don't program. And this is something that I did in the course of like 4 to 6 hours. And so it's super simple for anybody to get in there and do it. And people forget that everything now is a Linux box of some kind. I mean, you have so many embedded devices running that you would not believe how many of them are talking to the outside of your network. Sorry, we got to keep on going. Okay, so we talked about embedded devices. Now we're going to go back to the SCADA ICS. Who was at that talk earlier? A few people. A lot of people deal with SCADA and ICS. So Bro, not to be confused with Bro Wallet, Bro, as a National Science Foundation, we get grants and stuff like that. One of the big ones we just got about a month ago, September the 1st actually, was a big one to look at ICS and SCADA devices. So we've taken those and we've brought them into Bro, and we're working on research on that department. And so Bro automatically, or I shouldn't say automatic, Bro already speaks and understands Modbus and DLMP3. So I can already take and put Bro on a full SCADA network because, okay, the people that work with SCADA, raise your hand. Nobody? One? Really? Well, most of your security teams, if you were to say you're going to do a vulnerability assessment, they wouldn't freak out too bad, come in, scan your network, stuff like that. You tell an ICS SCADA group that you're going to come do a vulnerability assessment, and it's like cold sweats and vomiting, and it's scary. I mean, they will not let you touch it. And the reason is a lot of this equipment is very old. And then we did some things like we took some controllers and that only spoke serial, and they just made kind of a TCP IP adapter and kind of literally bolted it onto it and then just plugged it into something and it worked, and we don't touch it from there. And a lot of times it's because these facilities that these are running in are things we can't take down, right? Whether it be a production plant, whether it be pipeline, whether it be water treatment, sewage, stuff like that, are things that people don't want to shut down. Half of it is because they don't know if this shit will come back up. I mean, this stuff's been running since the 70s. We just don't touch it. And so that's pretty much the mind frame whenever you go into these environments. So one of the nice things we did is bring Modbus and into Bro and allow Bro to read the packets, allow Bro to see what's going on, and then talk about that stuff. So here's a typical deployment. And the best part about all these is why this all came up, and I believe probably one of the main reasons we got this grant is because there's a lot of vulnerabilities out. We talked about those in the talk earlier, but there's a lot more that people don't even realize that are out there. So we can take these devices, and some of them even have IP tables and everything on them. They're running BusyBox already. Get into their root, and there's actually already, and I'm sorry because I can't remember the name, but there's a whole like Metasploit just for these devices. So you can automatically generate pivot sessions. You can come in and change values. You can build and create a whole binary package, send it to it, and then go ahead and pivot through the network and hack from the bottom up, if you will. And so Bro takes the things, and and this is the thing about Bro that I like the most. So here's something on the network. We're looking at something. And so this is coming through, and we notice that, let's say 121 here is a Modbus slave, and all of a sudden down here, it's a Modbus master. Is that right? Is that good? Should these things be Modbus masters? I don't know. I'm not an ICS kind of guy. But the thing is that we can look into the protocol just fine, and then we can give that to the people that should know. So your engineers that should know what is going on these communication platforms, if this is right or wrong. Should we, this is one I like. So here's some equipment talking, and we got the blue line here, the orange line, and the red line. What's normal? And I don't know what's normal for your environment. So it allows you to basically, here's the way we take this, throw it into a graph, and we can look at things. Well, should this be dipping down below blue? I don't know. Is this pressure of a pipeline? Is this impedance of, current going to some switch? Things that I don't know, but things that we can go ahead and pump into Bro, research that we can do so that we can say this is normal, this isn't normal. What do we need to know about the events going on in my network?
So is the red the traffic going back to China?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's the continuous ping so that they can shut down the power. And it allows you to read. So here's registers changing. Bro's going to sit there and monitor the wire. As things happen, you can set it up so you can have, like we set up for, alerts, notifications. You could even make it so bells and whistles go off if you want. Things that you would want to know that could be occurring. So that if somebody came in there and said, right, all the registers to off, all the registers to on, 0, 1, whatever they need to be, things that we can be alerted about that are happening on the Modbus protocol. And this is, like I said, this is one that we just got funded, so we are diving into it more. So if your enterprise has industrial control systems and stuff like that, you might be want to come talk to us, and maybe we can work something out. We can actually come in there and look at what you have and work back and forth to see if we can figure out a way for us to be able to monitor it more closely. We talked about some of the different apps that are in the Bro app portfolio. And the nice thing about Bro is it runs on some large networks. We said that it runs at LBL on a /8. It runs on a lot of universities and stuff like that, because that's our core where Bro started, is the education university area, where you're pretty much working like an ISP. Not only do you have to support servers and get traffic from point A to B, but you guys to provide an internet service mostly for your students to be able to use internet and access different things. So we had a Bro box plugged in there, and you can see 124-hour period, we had 49,000, almost 50,000 unique applications that came through there. So different versions of Chrome, different versions of Firefox, different handsets and stuff like that on there. And then you can take Bro, plug it in to Enterprise, and we can passively look at all the traffic going through and tell you things like how many versions of Java you have running right now. How far behind are you in Java? How many versions of PHP is your servers running? How far behind are you in your patch cycle? What if some Joe Blow, and I've worked on a project like this, decommissioned some box and put it in a closet 5 years ago, somebody else decided to use it for something else, brought it out, plugged it into the network, and then opened access to doing wire trades or something like that. These are things you would want to know and things that you can alert yourself on. So here's some of the things like you would see. So here's just Android phones. Well, there's a touchpad here, running through the network, and you can see how far down into that device we can see as far as version information, just passively watching traffic. This is the one we plugged into a corporation that, I don't even know if I'm supposed to show this actually, but this was literally a large corporation running in the United States with lots of retail space. And this is how many versions of PHP they had running through their network. And then we were like, oh, and they're like, is that bad? And we're like, well, let's just take one. So we took 523 because it was right in the middle, and we pulled it up, and we said, it could be worse, I guess. But 25 code execution exploits known for just that one version. I mean, things like that make a huge, that's a huge deal for a corporation, especially if these are going through the firewall. These are entering the internet. So these are publicly accessible.
Is that especially bad, or is that like average?
Honestly, it depends on the corporation. That is very average, because people plug in stuff that they don't want to touch, they're told not to touch, or they forgot about, right? And then just like we were talking about earlier when they were there talking about ICS SCADA stuff, when an update comes out, the vulnerability is known, it's not patched for 6 months, and then it's usually another 6 months before you get any kind of patch rolled out to you and locally. So this is pretty common. Depends on how your sensors are picked, placed to pick up traffic. This is pretty common.
So can we catch Jason's malware?
Jason's malformed malware. So that pretty much runs me out of time. If you want to talk more, if you want to look at some of these files later, you can write down my GitHub. I'll go ahead and put all the malware up there. I have, if you're if you're an Apple person, there's a nightly version of Bro that's up to date. I usually update once a week or so. Twitter, IRC, there's a Bro channel on IRC. There's lots of developers always hanging out. So if you have questions, you just get on that channel and ask your question. Somebody will either tell you how to fix it, how to run it, or they'll say that's a good idea. And chances are somebody's going to drop you something 30 minutes later of how you can detect it. It's amazingly quick. And then you can email me if you'd like. Yes?
Can I ask if FOSCAM was on that list for cameras?
What's that?
The FOSCAM.
On that list, I would have to. So basically, we were scared it was getting embedded because it came down to one OEM manufacturer. I would have to look at the full list, and I don't even think we have the full list of all the different devices that they make. But it was pretty much your lower end cameras. There were some mids in there, but it was your lower end cameras. The DVRs they hook up to, those are also under the same thing. So yeah, the DVRs had more processing power. So if you read that report and he talks about the main nodes, those are usually mostly the DVR actual units that were in there because they were made to handle more processing power. Like I said, if you have any questions or anything, I'll be out there. You can hit me up. And then I appreciate it, guys.